My name is Mark Ehrlichs, and I am a healer by the grace of God. And this is all that I do in my life. And I'm grateful for you wanting information, for wanting healing, for hey, Diana, good to see you. Just everything, just everything. And I'm honored that everyone is here. And there's more people coming on board, which is great. And so we'll just take it as that. I work with healing and spiritual healing, and it's my gift, my tool, and my goal. And it's my place to help other people realize and recognize within themselves that they too are just so much a part of this. And I'll share everything I can to help you in your path of being of that nature, if that's what your calling is, or just to get information. Hey, Joanne, good to see you here. Thanks for being. And I'm honored, totally honored. And for anyone that misses anything, please, just go back to the replay. Hey, Roxy, good to see you. Real good to see you. Thanks for being here. People from all over the country and out of the country too. All right, what we're learning tonight. Good question, Roxy. Well, I don't know yet, so let's find out. There's people that have asked questions, and I'm going to answer them, to the best of my ability. And if anyone has any newer questions, for this time I won't be able to see what's being asked or said. And let me double check to make sure that I have this up. Yes, I do. All right. And I never know what's going to come out of my mouth, what diatribe or whatever. And I just let it flow. I say, okay, boss, take over. And so we have several events coming up. And first, as I mentioned in a class earlier, that in the mini-series, that I normally travel around the country and teaching and working with people and stuff. And now we're going to because of the internet, various countries, which is awesome. And via the internet, it's tremendous. I love technology. I know nothing about it, but technology helps me to do this. And Lynn helps to set all this up. And I also have appointments for spiritual healing if people are interested. And I'll be able to see sometimes, not all the time, and I don't want to make this a main point, but sometimes I can see the influences of your loved ones that have or haven't passed, or the causes of your distresses, whether it be from a loved one or someone that participated in your life in some way or another. And the appointments, I just want to say, are via telephone or Zoom or FaceTime. So they are available to people. And all that information is, hey, Kathy, good to see you. And the information is available on the website, and Lynn will supply that at the beginning and the end, if you don't mind, Lynn. Thank you. And there's also workshops coming up, so please do take advantage of that. There's a mini-series that I offer for free for everyone, and Lynn will be posting this last one. She posted it already, I think, on YouTube, and that's what I got a note about. And also, yeah, thanks, Lynn. And that will also go on to the Spiritual Healing with Mark Ehrlich's community page. So please do go over that if you have an opportunity. I thought it was pretty good, and of course I would. And let's see, Lynn wrote also the Experiential Healing Series 2 is coming up for anyone who's taken any of my classes, even the Apprentice program or the Enlightenment class. It's coming up, and it'll be this coming June 22nd through 26th, the Series 2. And that's all the information is on the website. And so again, the mini-series are free. The gathering is free. The healing circles are free. And healing circles, Lynn and I talked about this, and we came up with the idea of having it every other week. I believe that's what we came up with. Let's see. And the Healing Circle is open to the public as well, and anyone can see the mini-series. And then we have the Gathering here, which is open to everyone. And she's also going to be putting up the mini-series on Mark Ehrlich's for all those that are still part of that group. And there's a lot of people there. There's about 5,000 or so on the Mark Ehrlich's page. And so I can't accept anymore, but there's a lot of people there that don't necessarily want to come onto this page, which is fine, and I have no qualms with that. So in the Gathering here, I'll do my best to answer any of the questions that you may have on healing or spirituality. And also there'll be some people that I haven't worked with before that might have a request for healing, and I'll work with them. And at the very end, there's a very short and powerful meditation. So please do participate with all your heart. Let's see what else. I can't think of anything right now. So let's get to the questions. I think that's a great idea. Thanks for putting this stuff up, Lynn. And yeah, she's putting a lot of information. This is great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's see, Sue, my friend Sue, she wrote, how to manifest pictures of another's life. And my answer, well, first of all, hi, Sue. And she may or may not be here right now. There's a lot of people that we can't see for some reason. It's just one of the logarithms of Facebook. And so what I do when working with another is I wonder what the causal moment is in their life. At times. Other times, I don't even wonder that. I just work with them and let the energetics of that life force come forth. And so I don't, again, the question is how to manifest pictures of another person's life that she's referring to when we're working with them. And she's been following me for a long, long time, and she's taken all my classes. So my answer to that is when I do work with another, what I do is I wonder within myself of what that causal moment might be in their life at times. And as I said already, there's other times that I don't, and I'm just there letting the life force come out of me and helping them in their life force to remember who they really are, to remember, bring the members back where something that might be out of discord in their body. And whether physiologically, emotionally, whatever, and or biologically, neurologically, or whatever. Sometimes the body gets out of sync, and it needs remembrance on how to be. And so this is what we're capable of doing. And so I may rest my hands on them. Most people I do when I see them in person. And when not, I do what people refer to as distance healing. I don't see it as distance. I see it here and now, as if I'm actually working with them. So to manifest pictures, going back to the question, sometimes I'll receive an answer through hearing or seeing. But it's shown to me and told to me through my knowing. We hear and see through our knowing, through identifications, through information that's being shared with us. If it pertains to us, that's how we get the proofs of that divinity within us, that unlimited godliness within us. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't care, but it wants to share with us of what we're pursuing, of what our intent is, and where we're coming from in our life. And the more selfless we become in that moment. We can't retain that selflessness all the time, but in that moment, when we're in that selfless moment, that's when we're opened and we may hear or see something. And those are our proofs that the divinity is sharing it with us, or with me as I express, and with you too as you go that route. And of course, if it's my business to see or hear it, I will. If it isn't my business, I won't. And so, yeah, thanks, Mariko. I really appreciate your being here. And so I can't read necessarily what you're writing. My phone only shows a part of it, and when it sees see more, I can't click on that. It won't go there for some reason. So if it's my business, I'll see it. And if it's not, I won't. My place may be to just go to that area and work with it and help the body to remember. And that's all I really want to do, is to remember its truer function and its truer place, and that the whole body is really wanting to resync with itself, to become whole again. And that's what, I'm there for most often. And also she wrote, I'm referring to when she wrote the question, how to manifest pictures of another's life. Yes. She also wrote, I'm referring to the bells ringing and the asthma story, or perceiving where pain originated in distance healing. The bells ringing is a story I told Sue one time, and it pertains to, I was in Nashville. I was doing a healing circle at the time, many years ago. And in this healing circle, there were a bunch of people all around. And this one woman said, okay, I want to be next, please, please, please. And so I said, yeah, come on up. So everyone's standing, because there's no room to sit in this larger room, but there was no room to sit. And so she walked her way through and came up in the center of this really tight circle. And she says, whatever you find with me, please. And I said, okay. And so I put my hands on her head, and I asked a blessing from within myself that she might receive some form of grace in her life, not knowing what her situation was, or knowing her at all, or whatever. And then as I worked with her, as my hands were on her head, all around me, I kept hearing these deep, deep bells, like church bells. And I kept wondering, what is this? Why am I hearing bells? No one else is hearing it. And I'm looking at people, they're just watching me, and I keep hearing the darn bells. And then I kept wondering so deep, and I kept getting taken deeper in that experience. And as I was wondering and going deeper and deeper and deeper, I heard St. Mary's, and I'm hearing the bells around me, and St. Mary's, and the bells, and St. Mary's, and the beautiful bells, just beautiful, maybe 2 or 3 of them at one time. And at the same time, the hearing of St. Mary's, and I pictured just beautiful church, and didn't know where in the world it was. It was somewhere in the world. That was my perception. And it just wasn't a spiritual church. It also had a physical manifestation to it. And so I took my hands down and I says, okay, tell me about the darn bells of St. Mary's. And she went, oh my God, I was just in England, or wherever it was, Britain, somewhere, England, somewhere in Europe. And she said, I was just there, and that was the most beautiful, beautiful time of my life, and I remember those bells, and it was a spiritual experience with me. And so it might have been my place to remind her of that. And So we find ourselves in these situations where we might perceive of something through our knowing, our hearing, or seeing, not feeling, because feeling has pictures as well, so we're hearing and seeing. And so um, we have that within us to be able to do these things. And it was all, you know, minutia to me, the bells of St. Mary's. You know, I didn't know what they were, but I had to go within myself to have that experience. And the other person, the woman, she had to remember that experience as well. So maybe that person, since her trip to England, however far back that was, before the healing circle, was the beginning to becoming complacent after that experience, because she was no longer experiencing the beauty of the bells of St. Mary's or her time there in Europe, wherever it was, where she heard that. And it helped her maybe. Maybe it was her soul that was bringing her back to her path of life. And my place was to, hey, Patty, my place was to help her remember that and to go back to the place as far as not being downed in life. Hey, Kim, good to see you. Thanks for being here, my dear friend. And so, yes, and otherwise, in the interim times of our life when we're not experiencing those things, what we're doing is we're becoming complacent in life. And our place is to constantly keep the juice going, keep the memory going of the so-called spiritual experience, whatever it might be. And so, you know, that's what I've always thought, was that her soul was bringing her back to her path in life. And I was just utilized for that. And the consciousness within me, the light which has a consciousness, it knows and it correlates with her soul's calling. And that's what a healer does, any healer, truly. So, then, I don't know. So basically, to answer your question more so, yes, the memory is stored in the cells and the tissue and the fluids of the body. And it's stored first in the experience of the mind. And she also wanted to know about the woman with asthma. There was a woman one time at another healing circle in Chicago, and I remember telling Sue this and several other people as well. She came into the center of the circle, and I started working with her, and I couldn't figure out where the asthma was. She was 47 years old lady, or 47 years young, and she had asthma all these years since childhood. And so I put my hands on her head, and I didn't perceive of anything. Then I started working down around her body, and as I went down, I was getting a sensation, but I knew that wasn't the causal, because that was the beginning of the sensation. And so I worked down and down and down, and I finally got to, I think, 5 or 7 years of old, or 9 years of age, or something like that. I think it was 9. And at that age, in her leg where I felt it, which I teach in the classes and etc., it got so intense, and I honed in, I put my hands on the age of 9 on her knee, and I kept wondering, what is this? What is this? And I kept going deeper and deeper and deeper inside myself. And as I went deeper, I was allowed to go even deeper. And then then the image popped in my head. It was like a consciousness that shared with me of her on the ground, almost in a a fetal position, but on her back. Her knees are up and all like that, and she's holding her. I saw she was holding her arms like this. Her uncle was on top of her, tickling her, thinking it was funny. And she was hurting. It hurt her to be tickled by him. He was doing it hard, and he thought it was just so cute and so funny, and there are other people in the room, and she did not like that. And it hurt her physically in her body. And so what she did as a last resort, she went like that, held her breath, and thinking they would decrease. And then I said, I got it. And she says, what? And I said, your uncle. And I told her what she looked like. I told her what her uncle looked like. And the pictures were there. They were just there. And so that's, again, the soul which carries the experience. That's all the soul does. It carries the experience and brings us into what we need to work with and to get over in life. And many times that's what people call karma, which has nothing to do with that. But the soul's purpose is to help us by bringing information to us of what we need to work out in life. I mean, otherwise we can spend the rest of our lives working these things out, and they start splintering out into all kinds of dynamics in our bodies, perceptional, you name it. And so if we can catch it in that moment breaks. We no longer have to work with it if we're objectively observant with it. And so, yes, again, the memory is stored in our cells and our tissues and the fluids of our body, and it's stored first in the experiential that we have and the mind. It's a part of us naturally. And so, but it's there to be recognized by us always. Or another that can't be able to help another, there has to either recognized by us or through someone like myself or like you. If you're practicing this stuff, you can help another recognize this as well. And so they find people like us for whatever is necessary in their life, whatever is necessary. And it doesn't have to be a dramatic healing. It's just a recognition to possibly, for us to possibly perceive of these things. And if not, our place is just to work with them and let the old man or old woman inside take over. And let it do it by us being there. Even if we don't see or hear anything. Again, oftentimes it's none of our business. And I've been told that before. It's none of my business. The voice said, none of your business. So I don't hear or say anything, but my place is just to be there. Sometimes people don't need to remember these things. And other times, people don't want to hear these things. And there's other times that people are very open. And so you'll have a guidance and you'll have a direction as you practice working with this stuff. And it's always there. It's always waiting for you. And so we all have what I call a spiritual cleanup crew. And one time, many years ago, in the Order in Fort Worth, I was doing healing secretly on people on outside and stuff like that. No one that could ever find me or see me again. And so I did something with someone, and for some reason, it didn't feel right. And I don't know why, but I think I thought at the time that I had really screwed up in the healing, and because a person didn't perceive it correctly, or I didn't do it correctly, I thought. And so I don't remember the exact circumstances. But I was in the chapel where I lived, and I was saying, oh my God, I really screwed up. I was sitting down, I was the only one in the chapel, and thinking to myself, I really screwed up. Please forgive me, God, forgive me. and I was taking myself through all kinds of contortions of not doing it correctly. And then all of a sudden, in the back of my mind, in the back of my head, I perceived the presence. So I was going to turn around, but instead of that, I just, wondered what that presence was. Then I saw three angels, and they were the motliest looking angels I can ever conceive. I mean, they had, real funky smocks on, and they were just, like this. They weren't smiling and, having, wands that they would touch it with or anything, or wings or anything. They just were funky. And so I was wondering, what are you? And a voice said to me, they're your spiritual cleanup crew. I cracked up. So every time, and I realized that every time I screw up, if I should, in something that I didn't really perceive was correct in the procedure of doing things, then they would be there. And I've realized that, and I've always found that out since in those times. They would clean up the mess that I made. One of the three motley angels, I call them, had a mop, one had a broom, and one had a bucket. They were literally my spiritual cleanup crew, and I love that. And so I've always kept that in mind as well, and I thank God for that. So in what I refer to as God. And so we're there. And oftentimes what happens when and as we experience these memories of these dynamics that happened with us, with the other person, when we do experience these things, or even in ourselves. Hey, Debbie, good to see you, Debbie. Thanks for being here. What we want to do is, work out something. And I have no understanding why someone wants to do this, except if someone is so lost in their life. Then I believe that therapy is really some sort of what's needed in the person's life. If they're so deep into that, and God bless them. Nothing incorrect about that. Nothing at all. And so, again, anyone here who didn't get to see from the beginning of this, please be available to see the replay when Lynn I'll be putting it up. The replay will be available fairly quickly after we sign off and all. So, and Lynn will also be putting it onto the YouTube channels, or the channel, I mean. And so, in any case, pertaining to your question, though, Sue, the other part of your question is, yes, this, and the story of asthma, of that woman that I worked with, that 47-year-old woman, and her uncle tickling her and stuff like that. I was totally deeply guided to go deeper and deeper in a very short period of time. And what I did was I trusted. And so I just went with that understanding that I had to go deeper, and I was taken into that to show me that I could go deeper, even though I've been previously with other people and for many years going deeper. So that was the only way that through going into that depth of wanting to know and wondering that I could perceive that causal time that created that asthmatic condition for that young lady. And so with all these things, though, the body does send messages to us. And they're to be discovered and seen and brought up, if it's our place to see these things. So, to manifest pictures of another's life is to trust the indicators that are coming to you that there is more to the story. And not realizing that, oh, I got the answer and that's all there is to it. No, there's always more to it. There's always more to the story. And to wonder. And then we get to see a causal moment. And it's to trust what might come to us come to mind as because now we're utilizing mind as a vehicle that the information come through instead of utilizing mind as just thinking. So, and judging and critiquing and trying to, analyze whatever. We allow the mind to do those things while living in the world, and at the same time, we can utilize the mind in the same time that the worldly is coming in. We can utilize the mind to be more focused, where we can perceive information and trust what might be coming to you and to your mind. And that's trusting yourself. So I hope that makes sense for people. Yes, and thanks, Lynn. So also, I hope that answers your information, Sue. And my friend Mike, known him for many, 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 many years, and he came to some of the original healing circles 25 years ago in Chicago, and been to a lot of workshops, etc. He's awesome. And so, but Mike wrote, "This reminds me, especially today, to not judge with my mind." He made a comment somewhere about that, but to try to encompass with my heart. And I love that. It's so true. To judge with the mind is our first reaction. To critique with the mind is our first reaction. To analyze with the mind is our first reaction. Of bringing back, excuse me for a second here, bringing back events and memories of our lives, of our experiences. Ideally, we're learning to perceive something and to wait before we make that judgment, or we have a definite thought, a determination of the way things are. Because that's not the way real life is. That's just a reaction of events and memories that are stored within us. Going back to what's stored within us in our cells, our tissue, our blood, or other fluids of the body. It's memory. And so to judge with the mind is our first reaction of the events and the memories and of our experiences of life. Ideally, we're learning to perceive something and to wait. We're perceiving information and to wait objectively and observantly, just to see if there's more to the story. There's always more to the story, always. So, and as we wait, there's literally no judgment. There's no room for it because we're waiting. There's no room for judgment. There's no room for analyzing or critiquing or thinking or anything else. We're waiting, and the mind is clear. If it's not doing that activity, there's a clarity to it because we don't know what the activity is coming up. It's just like being in wonderment and wondering. Nothing's happening during wondering. So we have that opportunity to learn how to do this. And it's fairly simple as you begin to practice wondering. No different than the analogy I always give. Being in the shower, doing the dishes, all of a sudden we have an aha moment. And we're focused. And then information comes to you, an aha moment. It was waiting to be discovered. And so then it's more possible to see the greater truth of things when we're in that place to do that. And I'm not always in that place. I have to practice these things as well in my life. But the more you practice, the more obvious that voice is of hearing and seeing. Because the voice shows you as well as tells you from your knowing. So, it's the thinking that takes us to the judgment versus discernment of what's really real. and what more is going to be made more obvious of what the true picture is. My friend Julian, he wrote a couple questions here. Hi, Mark. Have you ever had any spiritual experiences before you joined the order? Well, first, hi, Julian, and thanks for asking. And also, I hope that we had an appointment, and I just hope that today brought you healing in your life. So, to answer your question, did I have any spiritual experiences prior to joining the order? Yes. When I was young, there were many, and I thought they were fanciful or delirious dreams at times, and mostly they would come to me in high fevers, and I had many high fevers growing up, many. And I think one of them that was most outstanding to me, or they all were, but one that was really outstanding was when I was the age of 9, one of those many times in delirious high fever. What had happened? I found myself standing in this really darkened, forested area. And there was a huge behind me, and I was only 9 at the time, and I had no biblical training. My parents didn't even have a Bible in the house, and I was brought up in a nice Jewish neighborhood, and all my friends were Jewish, and so we didn't have any real religious training, and I wasn't. I went to temple, but with my buddies, and just once in a while. Just to be friends with them and to see what new was happening in the world. But I never heard stories or nothing. It was a nice Jewish neighborhood. And so so that will explain the next part of my story. So I found myself standing in this, in a dark, dingy forest, and behind me was this huge, dark figure. And so I was semi-conscious in this fever, and so I knew that I had to get out, and I knew away from him, and there was a path that I was on in this dark forest all around me, and so I started running a little bit, and this figure kept up with me. Maybe about 5-6 feet away, I don't know, and then it started getting closer to me, and I started running faster, and after maybe several seconds, I looked back, and it was getting a little closer to me, and then I ran faster as I could. I kept going faster and faster and faster, and the figure kept getting closer and closer and closer until maybe it was about 1.5 to 2 feet away from me. And I was scared inside. I was so scared of this thing getting me, thinking that it was going to take me. I was in fear, and thinking that I wouldn't exist if it had gotten me. So I just, with all my life, I kept running faster. And then to my right, I saw a little flower in the forest along the path. And I was amazed at it, and in this dark, dingy forest. And then to my left, I saw 2 more flowers together, bright flowers, colorful flowers, beautiful flowers. And then as I kept running faster and faster and faster, and this thing is almost reaching for me, I saw more flowers. And then I turned around. Hi, LV, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And as I turned around, then all of a sudden to see if it was there, and it was like reaching for me. But then I saw that there was light all around me. I was no longer in the dark, dingy forest. And I turned around and looked at the figure, and it wasn't there for some reason in that opening. And then as I started turning around to see where I was running, I, it's almost like I lunged into this big mound of rocks, and I was on the ground. I fell, and as I started to look up, and I started seeing these rocks, these big boulders, it had a form to it, and it almost looked like a Buddhic figure. And I looked up at it, and it was smiling at me. But these rocks had pits in them all over the place. And I just stared at it, and it had the most beautiful smile that I could ever experience. And I was in awe and wonderment, and it told me its name was Job. And I just looked, and then it smiled, and then I woke up. And it was the most incredible smile. It just changed me inside, made me feel secure, made me feel better. And then as I woke up, my fever had broken. And but it wasn't until years later I saw, I opened up a Bible for the first time, and I saw the word Job. So I started reading it, and it described him after his experiences with the devil and with God. And it sounded just like him, because it described these big craters inside of him, his figure that I had seen. And they were of disease that he had overcome. And those are just the remaining marks and reminders of that. And so I met Job, because I had never heard of or read anything biblical prior to that. And so, yes, I've had many, 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 many experiences. I used to have dreams when I was younger, and of different things and other experiences besides dreams as well. So, any case, good question. And I don't know if I've told that story before. I think I have a long time ago. So another question that he wants to know is, what is your opinion on the electromagnetic fields that are generated from mobile phones or Wi-Fi routers? Does that harm the body in any way? And can you pick up this kind of these kinds of fields? Thanks a lot. Well, you know, I'm aware of these electromagnetic fields that exist, and in science, it's measurable in our world. It's actually measurable, and it's a scientific fact of these things. And we even emanate the electromagnetic. We have that within us, and for us, it's our electrical matrix that keeps us together. If we didn't have that, our cells would fly apart if we didn't have that, and we wouldn't be able to exist in the physical body. We just wouldn't without the electromagnetic within us. No, there wouldn't be in our world, a definite pattern, form, or shape without it. So, yes, I'm aware of the fields, and the fields that Julian is talking about are, if they're too much for us, the body can't handle it. And it throws our systems out of sync, which can eventually, not right away, they can eventually harm us. And so, also after exposure though, the body also wants us to heal, and throws us into a healing crisis, known or unbeknownst to us. We go through minor changes where the body is healing. And so even if we use a cell phone all day long, the brain is affected, sure, and the cellular activity is affected, but there's also a regeneration that happens in our healing crisis. First, there's a shock trauma when something dramatic happens, whether it be known or unbeknownst to us. Then there's the healing crisis. and that is pretty much taken care of for us. Another time, for another kind of situation of the electromagnetic influences, I remember one time at a party, I was standing and watching everyone having a real pleasant time. A lot of people there, and some I knew, some I didn't. And so I was just standing there watching everyone. And then I perceived um, like the emanations of the electromagnetic, uh, on my backside and in my head, and someone behind me. And I knew that through past experience that they were either thinking about me or watching me. And so I played along with it. And as I played along with it, um, uh, I waited till the perfect time when I felt it the strongest within me. And then all of a sudden I went like that and stared at them. And the person was there, and they went like this. But you can pick up thoughts. You can have things, thoughts from other people that aren't your thoughts normally. You'll perceive of them. And that's another form of electromagnetic, but in a more subtle form that we carry. And we have it all within us. And so, in any case, good questions. Really, really good questions. All right. Let me see here if there's someone that I can see that might be around here. One second here. I apologize for this. Let's see. Mariko, I want to say just I don't know anything about you really, but was your left, my left, or your right? I don't know which, but my left, your wrist sprained not too long ago. I don't know. So I'm going to, regardless whether it's happened yet or the potential future, what we're going to do, and sometimes I'll perceive a potential future. And real briefly, I want to share with you. Many years ago, and I've told this story before too, a lot of old stories. One time, many years ago, there were 5 people that were brought in front of me, and I had to tell every men and women that I didn't know. And so I had to tell every single thing that was incorrect in their bodies. And so they're standing there, and I'm naming off all these things, 20 things, and got to the last person, who was a guy, and I said, "Your shoulder." And he said, "No, nothing's wrong with my shoulder," but I felt this massive energy there, and I worked with it. And as I did, I worked and worked and worked until I felt it dissipate for after a few minutes. And so uh, he didn't feel anything, nothing happened, whatever, in the past, whatever. And it was later that night he got my number from someone, and he called me up and says, "I just came from ER and I injured my shoulder, and the doctor said it should have been worse than what it was. Thank you." So I realized that there's a potential future of things as well. Um, and so what I'm going to do is work with your wrist, and that was sprained, or I believe it was sprained, if not, if I'm not incorrect, or it will, or if it should be, not to give you an idea that you're going to be in an accident or like that. Don't go there. But if some dynamic in your life should occur, it will be nothing, and in comparison. So let me work with this real quickly. And you may, Mariko, you may sense something happening, hon. Now, my perception is I just had a release. And so, whatever. If it has been, or you might, say, "Oh, my wrist hurts," or something like that. You may be strained it like that or something like that in the future, or most likely in the recent past. my perceptions of things. The world according to Garth Mark. And so Diana wanted to know, thank you, Mark. I've been stressed over the current news here in the U.S., and I was thinking I didn't want to be here anymore. I can't read the rest of your message, but it's not allowing me to. I apologize for that. Let me see if I can see it on here. Not a great thought. Then last night I woke up and my lungs had basically quit working and I could not feel my heartbeat. Thank God you're here now. So it's too long to get into the rest of it. But, you know, with everything happening, my perception is I'm aware that all these dynamics are happening, but I also know it's not the end of the story. And when the end of the story comes, there's a fuller picture of what everything is creating for a different outcome than what we're currently recognizing in our current moment of things. So that enables me not to get involved by wanting to get out of the country or leaving Earth or whatever. I don't take it that personal, as I'm objectively observant, aware that there's more to the story. And I always keep that in mind. And that helps me to do more of what I do, or anyone in life, to do more and to get more into that heartfelt. That's what's going to affect people in a greater way, much greater way. And so that's how I can help, is by affecting people, to help them to see or know otherwise, another wisdom. That's what otherwise is, another wisdom within us. And then we're kind of saved from the dilemmas and dramas and traumas. And what I'd like to do, Diana, is, if you don't mind, is work with your heart a little bit. And so I'm going to imagine your heart in my hands. And you may sense something happening. I always do, so, or most of the time I do. I'm feeling flow. And I'm feeling movement in that flow. It's gentle. It's real gentle. And that movement is the life force helping it to remember itself. And it just unconditionally loves you. But what we do is we often, humanity often destroys itself through what we refer to as hardships of the mental activity. And that leads into physical distress eventually, which is why not everyone, but many people that went through dilemmas and dramas and traumas and even super experiential spiritual experiences that they couldn't handle at younger ages, it's stored within us, and we later in life act it out, which is why we have so many things that bother us later in life. But to work it out is really to be objectively observant. Then we see that it no longer has an effect upon us in our life. So, and I hope that helps you, Diana, and affects you and everyone here to varying degrees, because all of us have stuff. Everyone does. And what I do is I try to, when I feel awkward about something or when I don't like something, I take a look at myself, and if I can't immediately see how I can reference it from my own experience, then I look and wonder about it. And usually, not all the time, but usually, I'll perceive of something that has happened, but in a more perfect picture than my perception was back then. And then then the back of that situation or the dilemma or the drama or the trauma in my life or in my mind breaks. And I no longer have to work that because I've objectively, observantly looked at it instead of participating in it. Which the next class will cover a lot of that information. So if you have any kind of teachings behind me that you have from me, have taken any of the courses, then sign up for that series too, please. We'll cover a lot of stuff. Please do take advantage of that. Other than that, what I'd like to do real briefly, if you don't mind, just have a seat back and just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth and let everything go. And just focus on your breath. No thinking. Every time you start thinking, take another breath. And you can burst out laughing if you want or whatever. Who cares? The godliness loves it because you're not thinking of the world stuff. You're thinking of you. And what I'd like you to do is take another deep breath in through your nose, slow motion, very slow motion, and real gently and slow motion out through your mouth. And just for this time, and just knowing that your body's relaxing because you're feeling a sense of relief, or you could, and just imagine within yourself that peace that is there when you do take that breath. There's a peace behind the activity of breathing and letting it out of your mouth. And as you let the peace out of your mouth, watch it come out in waves. Just watch it come out in waves. And as you do let that peace come out of your mouth in waves, then more peace wants to come within you and participate in your life. Allow it to happen. Just for this moment. Just breathe in through your nose, slow motion, and slowly and gently out of your mouth. And watch the peace come forth from your mouth in waves. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. It's there waiting to give to you. And it gets enlivened as we participate in observing it. It gets enlivened as we participate in observing it. And that creates a change within you. And it's a part of evolution. It's a part of life. It's a part of you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful. And do me a favor, please. If you can, Google loves the, Google and Facebook love the analytics. So if you can put hashtag #YouRock in no spaces or anything else, and or something if you enjoyed this. And if you watched the replay, put hashtag replay so I'll know that you saw it on the replay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm honored. And look forward to the next events. Go to the website and look at all the events, whatever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye.